All right, here we go. Welcome to the Deeper Dive presented by Super Draft. Dave Lockran with me, Adam Scher. 9 games today, man. Could the DFS world be any more in flames than it is right now?
It's pretty crazy. I liked Emacs tweet earlier. He was like, I'm old enough to remember when this only happened during All-Star breaks, and that's what it used to be. But now it's just every day of the week, apparently.
It's a pretty good tweet. Not bad.
It,
I didn't see it, but it's coming from all angles.
yeah,
Like
it's everywhere you look. It's multiple different things. It's been entertaining.
it's everywhere. Well, here's the good thing. We're here to talk about basketball. We save all the non-basketball talk for the strategy show, and you can check that out Monday through Saturday morning, 9:30 Eastern time, right here at youtube.com/awesemo. And you'll want to hang around after the show too. For live before lock, they'll take you up till 7 p.m. lock. 9 games, same question as always. Initial thoughts, a decent amount of injury news we're waiting on right now. Where do you stand?
Yeah, I think that overall the slate is interesting in that there's a bunch of really unappealing games and then a bunch of games where there are already players ruled out. So there's obviously a lot of plays from those games. I think the biggest injury news that we're still waiting on is Malcolm Brogdon in the 7 o'clock game. It doesn't matter all that much for DraftKings because the pricing is pretty tight anyway, but Brogdon's only 5,200 on FanDuel. So if he's in, then you kind of get a free square. If he's out, then obviously not so much.
Steve Finkelstein with the early super chat. Appreciate you, man. He says, everyone thumbs up and remember to just say no to Eric Gordon and PJ Tucker. You're welcome. Yes, this is true. But you know what? Fink, you were hating on Brandon Knight. Old fella came through yesterday a little bit. So
Yeah, and I'm not saying no to Eric Gordon. I'll say no to PJ Tucker. But
you have a problem when it comes to Eric Gordon. Like this is a thing with you.
I play him when he's good.
Well, wait, so you never play him?
I very, very, very rarely play Eric Gordon.
He's never good. You mean when he's
He,
nicely, like when he's in a good spot, like when he's
like
viable?
when Westbrook is out, yeah.
God, I hate this guy. Not you. You're all right, but it's going to be tough to get away from him with Westbrook out. We'll get into all of that and more. But first, I wanted to just, maybe let you know about Super Draft, not Super Chat. We appreciate all of those. Super Draft. Now, if you haven't played on Super Draft yet, there are a couple really cool aspects of it. There isn't a salary cap, but it's not some gimmicky type fantasy sports thing that, there's fly by night, come and go, disappear a month later. No, the concept is actually really cool. It's a multiplier mode. So essentially you can play whoever you want. You play a certain amount of players, right? You're not 100 of them. But instead of salaries, depending on like how good they are, their fantasy points are multiplied. It is a really cool aspect of daily fantasy sports that we haven't seen yet. I remember actually there was a time where Star Street used to do something similar where you could play like multiple shares of a certain player, but no one played on Star Street unless they were trying to get into the Playboy Mansion. So I don't imagine anyone would remember that anyway. But yeah, no salary restrictions. It's lineup freedom. All you got to do is use the sign up code AWESEMO and get free $20 in super cash with your first deposit of $100 or more. You can download it in the App Store or play at SuperDraft.io. They got it for all sports. Well, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, and golf. So you can get it in all year round at SuperDraft. Download the app or check it out at SuperDraft.io. Use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO. Get your $20 in super cash with your first deposit of $100 or more. Let's jump into it, man. We got 9 games to talk about. Indiana and Miami. Maybe not one of the most appealing games from the jump. Justice Winslow returning throws a wrench into the works as well. But definitely a spot where injury news plays a role. 210 over under right now. The Pacers are 1-point favorite at home. 105.5 implied for them, 104.5 for Miami. And as we stand right now, Brogdon and Sabonis both have Q tags. Not doubtful, not probable. They're questionable right now. Justice Winslow has already been ruled active. He will play. So we'll get to that momentarily. But first, what are your thoughts on Indy? And do you see either of these guys playing? Do you see both of them sitting? What's going on?
I have them both in for right now, but fortunately, this is a 7 o'clock game, so obviously we'll
Yeah.
have that news ahead of time. Sabonis, it's just a knee bruise or knee soreness. He finished the last game, played really well actually on Monday, so I assume he's okay to go. Brogdon, should be back sooner than later, I would think. But for both of them, I mean, it's not like it's a really appealing matchup. So if they're out, you would get more minutes opening up. If Brogdon's out, obviously for Aaron Holiday, a little bit of a bump for TJ McConnell. If Sabonis is out, then it probably doesn't matter as much because you're getting minutes for guys like McDermott and Sampson or whoever, like guys that don't really produce. It's more of a rate bump for the other guys on the floor if Sabonis sits. I think that the biggest impact, though, like I said at the top, is on FanDuel, where for whatever reason, Malcolm Brogdon missing games has caused his price tag to fall all the way to $5,200. If he comes back and even if you assume 30 minutes for him, it's pretty tough to get away from $5,200 for Brogdon, regardless of the matchup.
Appreciate you, Mike, for the super chat. Yeah, it is. This game, though, among 9 games, 8 other games, is it one that injuries could make it to where you're interested in it a lot more than you would be? Like, for example, if Brogdon's out, a lot of these guys' salaries have come up to a point where it's like not really that it's not really all that appealing. And El Negro Loco says, no, Laffy, Brogdon is a game time decision. Yeah, a question is same thing, man. I don't know. Same thing. Either way, do you see this being a spot where Brogdon being out influences it enough to make any calls here, get these guys in your lineup?
Him being out, I don't think really makes that big of a difference. I mean, Aaron Holiday is 5,400 on DraftKings. He's 4,900 on FanDuel. That's a little cheap, but it is still a pretty unappealing matchup. There's plenty of guards to get to today, so I don't think that he's as much of a priority if Brogdon's out as Brogdon would be on FanDuel if Brogdon is in.
Okay. Anything else for the Pacers?
No.
Winslow being back kind of throws a wrench into the works. He's definitely going to be eased back into it, knowing that he's been out for north of a month, but he was playing 30 plus minutes per game prior to this. And the interesting thing about the Miami Heat, I was actually thinking about this today when I was going over this team and how Winslow factors being back into the lineup. Like, they do have a lot of at least capable players, right? Whether it's Tyler Herro or Nunn or Duncan Robinson. I have no idea if, I don't know how it's going to shake out today, but it just, to me at least, makes all of these guys unappealing.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was already kind of a guessing game with those backcourt guys, whether it's Kendrick Nunn, Goran Dragic, or Tyler Herro. Now with Winslow in there, it's just even more kind of questionable minutes for those guys. I knocked Herro down to 22 minutes or 24 minutes. He's really cheap, but again, it's not a good matchup, and it's pretty easy to see him losing playing time with Winslow back. Winslow also, takes some usage and facilitating away from the second unit. So it's already not a spot where I was going to be very interested. And then throwing him back into the mix really just kind of leaves Bam and Butler as secondary options that I'm not going to get much of. But beyond that, it's really tough for me to be excited about anything from Miami.
Yeah, I mean, not just the backcourt, you're saying.
Right.
All right. Let's see here. Dustin Cole. I'm not reading that, but it's pretty funny. I'm not reading it out loud. I mean, let's talk about Toronto and Charlotte. The Hornets here coming in as, I don't know if I would say this is surprising. I think it is a little bit, though. They were, last I looked, 2-point dogs. They're now 2.5-point dogs. There are a ton of injuries, so I get it, to Toronto. It's understandable, but 207.5 over under, Adam. It's the lowest on the slate by a lot. 102.5 for the home team, 105 for the Toronto Raptors. Let's get Charlotte out of the way first, because look, it's not always that we're gonna full fade teams that have low totals and low games. I mean, there's very often times where if you get a cheap guy playing 40 minutes, it doesn't matter if they have a 100-point total. But the Hornets, it's really not that appealing, at least for me. You and I generally speak throughout the day. I didn't talk much about anything today, so I don't know where you're at on most of these guys, but I can assume that you're not prioritizing most of the Hornets, even though most of Toronto is injured.
Yeah, I'm not prioritizing a whole lot here. Like the salary has fallen a bit on Devontae Graham, which is normally pretty appealing. But this slate's just really weird in that there's a lot of plays that there are enough plays that I think are really, really strong plays where I'm not getting that different amongst like the mid-range guys. I'm kind of just playing the guys that I like. I think ownership will be spread out enough on most of them. So I'm not really getting too much Graham. It's not like it's a great matchup. His usage has been down a bit lately as well as teams start to defend him a little bit differently. Toronto, still not, they're not a fast team. They still shouldn't be a bad team defensively. So it's tough to get there. The one guy that does actually seem interesting to me is on DraftKings, Cody Zeller, only 4,100 with DraftKings or with power forward and center eligibility. It's not that I think it's a great spot for him, but you're going to get a lot of ownership going into that price range, but going to guys like PJ Tucker, Michael Porter, Bobby Portis. I think those are higher probability plays than Zeller, but I think that Zeller still has a high enough ceiling and a wide enough range of outcomes if he's going to get 22, 23 minutes where he's projected for a lot lower ownership. I think you can use him as a way to be a little bit different.
By the way, some comments coming in and catch up again, not getting into that, but I will say, Josh, I know you're listening. If you go back and look at the comments for yesterday's strategy show, overwhelming support for your boy Laffy and the ketchup on the eggs. Maybe Josh isn't around, but he'll hear it eventually.
I'll go by the results of the Twitter poll where you looked awful. How's that?
Yeah, that I don't really count that because it's not getting a true pulse of the people.
Were you trying to say that things that are happening on Twitter aren't really relevant right now?
No, I mean, obviously it means more than, 7 YouTube comments, but I don't know. I thought I'd let you know. You want to move to Toronto, Adam, or do you have anything else on Charlotte?
Yeah, that's about all that I have from Charlotte.
Yeah, I'll say that literally the same thing I always say about Graham. When a guy can play 40 minutes in regulation and he has a mid 7K price point, I'm never against it. But there are a lot of days where I would like him a whole lot more than I do today. And it doesn't help that this game is really not projected to score a ton of points either. Toronto going up on the road against the Hornets. Kind of an interesting rotation to some extent that we saw yesterday. The game was close. Melo hit the game winner with 3 seconds left. So we have a good idea of what type of run these guys are going to see with Van Vliet out. Kyle Lowry played 38 minutes. Zero surprise there whatsoever. Wouldn't be surprised to see him play the same again today, even on the second of a back-to-back. OG Anunoby played 30, Ibaka 32. Rondé Hollis Jefferson, easy for me to say, played 25. Patrick McCaw played 36, but he might be, we had a discussion the other morning about how bad, like Kyle Singler was the poster boy for 30 plus minutes and 5 fantasy points, right?
Yeah, I totally forgot about him, but that's a perfect call. Now it's Terrence Ferguson in like that same role.
Exactly. But Patrick McCaw is pretty close. And on the season, he's at like 0.55 fantasy points per minute. This guy played 36 minutes last night. And sure, you could argue, well, Laffy, he had 21 fantasy points. It's still like some of the most inefficient performances you will ever see from this guy. But here he is again, 35 plus minutes at sub 4K. So a lot to break down here. I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I think Lowry's the most interesting part for me. Had a lot of him yesterday. It worked out, pretty well. But I think that what's really interesting here is that because there are so many good plays on this slate and people are going to want to pay out for Harden, they're going to want to pay out for Luka. Right now, we only have Lowry projected for 12% ownership on DraftKings. I think that it's a little bit harder to get to him today than it was yesterday, just because of the other options. But at the same time, he's averaged 1.3 DraftKings points per minute without Siakam or Van Vliet on the floor. He leads the league in minutes played this year. Charlotte has been the slowest paced team over the last month, which is probably a big reason why the total in this game is so low. But they're also a bottom 10 defense and have been there basically the entire year. So I think that you should see maybe a little bit more efficiency from Lowry. The minutes should be there. It's expected to be a close game. And his salary actually dropped a couple $100 from yesterday. So I still think Lowry's a really good play. If ownership holds how it is right now, he'd be one of the guys on DraftKings that I'm the most over the field on, getting him in around half my lineups in the crunch I did before the show. But beyond him, there's not as much that I'm interested in. Ibaka's price tag has come up a bit. McCall, I'm not rostering. OG, I think, is a good option on FanDuel more so than DraftKings. And the same goes for Hollis Jefferson. But Lowry's the one that really stands out to me.
Do you think O'Shea Brissett sees another 23 minutes, 24 minutes?
I gave him, I think, 22.
Yeah, it was an interesting rotation. Sometimes you'll see this with bench players where they play not limited minutes in the first half, but less than they would in the second because they close games out. I can't say that I would expect that to be the case here. But, I mean, if we're going to look at this objectively, he played 11 minutes in the fourth quarter. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson came back with 1:19 left in a competitive game.
Yeah, definitely. The bigger impact for me there is that it scares me for Hollis Jefferson. I gave him 27 or 28 minutes, whereas I would like to be able to give him more in this matchup. But the fact that happened, at least, kind of makes me shy away from him a little bit.
We have news. Malcolm Brogdon has been ruled out. Domantas Sabonis is a game time decision. Hey, El Negro Loco. I thought Malcolm Brogdon was a game time decision, man. What happened? I'm just kidding. You're a good guy. We like you here. Anything else for Toronto you want to touch on with all of the ridiculous amount of injuries we've got?
Nope.
Okay. Let's talk about Orlando and Washington. Washington's just been one of the most brutal teams to discuss with the amount of injuries they've been dealt. And then you lose you lose Bradley Beal, and it just makes it compounds the problem even further. 221 over under on the slate. It's actually the fourth highest tonight of 9 games. 115 implied for Orlando, 106 for the Wizards. They're 9-point dogs on the road. I guess let's jump into the Orlando Magic first. We know that Isaac's out for a while. It never hurts to try and break down a rotation like this and see what they've been doing since Isaac went down. Josh spends all of his time praising Markelle Fultz, so I can never get into a substantive. Say the word for me.
Substantive.
Thank you. Conversation with him about the Orlando Magic. But
you think it's because of Fultz that we can't get in that conversation? You can't even speak, man. Come on now.
Yeah, I do. I do. Absolutely. We got to do a 3-man show sometime, by the way. I think it'd be quite enjoyable. But looking at what we saw from last game, there was nothing really that out of the ordinary, right? Wes Iwundu, gets his minutes and predictably does not much with them. But outside of that, Gordon played 33. This game got a bit out of hand towards the end, so it's tough to say. But the starters closed it out, so what's it matter? Fournier got 35. Vooch got 31. Markelle Fultz played 30. Terrence Ross got 22, and DJ Augustin got 28 off the bench. Do you see just more of the same tonight against Washington?
Well, they changed the starting lineup. Just announced that Khem Birch starting over Iwundu. So that gives us another value option.
That was right now. Okay.
Yeah. Just came in as you were talking.
Gotcha.
In the last game, Birch, what did you say?
It hurts Gordon.
Yeah, it hurts Gordon. Obviously hurts Iwundu, but it's less rebounding opportunities for Gordon, who I thought was one of the more appealing mid-range forward options. I still think that he's decent because the Wizards are the Wizards, but it should knock down his rebounding numbers a bit. It does give us another cheap power forward option to go to in Khem Birch, who played 25 minutes in the last game he started, which was January 3rd. If you get 25 minutes against the Wizards at 3,200, it's not the worst play in the world. Still not something I'm super excited about because he's still not going to be a high usage guy playing with Fournier and Vooch, but more minutes for him. So a little bit of a change there.
Okay. Is Orlando a spot that for them, looking at the Magic from top to bottom, you're starting to see some of the salaries come up. Aaron Gordon, he's had a pretty disappointing season. There's no two ways around it, but when he's closer to the basket, we've discussed this many times, he is a better play. We've seen Birch start at the 4 and Gordon at the 3. And then we've seen Gordon at the 4, Wundu at the 3. Like you said, we just got that lineup. Gordon moves back to the 3. Is there anyone you really like from Orlando?
Not really. Vooch is one of my top center options because I think it's a good spot for him. And, obviously he's Vooch, but in terms of roster construction, it still gets kind of tough for me to get to him because there's guys at the top with Harden and Luka that I want to pay up for. There's mid-range guys that I have that are a little bit cheaper than Vooch that, at different positions, but that I think project a little bit better, specifically Lowry, Brandon Ingram, Zach LaVine. So it's kind of been forcing me to pay down at center, whether it's to, Bobby Portis, who is a center on FanDuel and center eligible on DraftKings, whether, it's to someone like Alex Len or Mitchell Robinson. From a roster construction standpoint, I've kind of been going that route. So I wouldn't say I'm prioritizing anything from Orlando.
Okay. We did have some questions about Fultz, and I think they're reasonable. My favorite one is Laffy. I hate it, but Fultz is in play. So actually, this wasn't even a question. That was a statement. Look, going up against Washington, I'm not opposed to it. Generally speaking, I prefer guys that consistently give me 30 plus minutes and not just when they're playing well. But no, I think Fultz is fine against this Wizards team. You're not going to hear me make an argument against, like, if I always use this as like kind of not a benchmark, but just like a judgment. If I saw him in a tournament winning lineup tonight, I wouldn't be shocked about it. It's the Wizards. They're a bad basketball team. They play at a top 5 pace on the season. They rank dead last in defense, and the whole team is injured. So no, it's not crazy at all. But Markelle Fultz with his price tag increasing by the day makes it a little bit more difficult for me to like him. I mean, Adam, only 2 games ago or 3 games ago, he's 4,900. Now he's 5,800.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me. The salary came up at the same time where you have really good guard options at the top, and then some value to pay down for that's even cheaper than him. So it is a good spot. He's not someone I'm upset if I get to, but certainly not looking like a priority for me.
Let's talk about Washington. Number one priority here. Any word on Bradley Beal? Any lean here on what his status will be?
Went through shoot around. They said still a game time decision. Basically whenever anyone goes through shoot around, I assume that they play. So I'm going under that assumption, unless we get news that he's not. If he does play, I think that he's a reasonable option. I still think that there are plays I like more than him because it is a tough spot going into Orlando, and we don't know exactly what his minutes would look like. But the salary has come down, particularly on FanDuel. He's only 7,900 on DraftKings. He's I believe 8,400. So he would look okay. If he plays, I don't think anyone else on the Wizards looks particularly good. If he sits, then obviously it's back to the status quo with Jordan McRae playing. He played 41 minutes against Boston, but playing at least into the mid 30s and shooting every time he touches the ball. Ish Smith getting more run, Troy Brown getting more run and more production. So we know what it looks like without Beal. I think that the salaries have gotten to a point where if Beal is back, it gets really difficult to get to anyone else other than Beal.
I mean, if Beal plays, $6,600 Jordan McRae is kind of difficult. It isn't to say that he won't still get chances. Like, what would you give him for minutes if Beal plays?
I have McRae at 32 minutes, assuming Beal plays. Right. The problem is that, I assume that McRae would play every minute that Beal's not on the floor, but he's going to take a usage hit whenever Beal's out there. So you would have a rising price point on McRae. You would have a tough matchup. And even though I think the minutes would still be reasonable, it's going to be lower usage than he's priced for.
Didn't he score the most points ever in a G League game?
Yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah, I think it was.
I think that's right.
I think it was like 180. No, it was a lot. Like it was. I don't know how many points, but I'm pretty sure he scored like 60 or something insane. 61. Yeah. I still remember that happening back in 2016. And then he got brought up and played, and a lot of people played him. He was chalk, and he was just horrible and didn't really get minutes at all. Anything else on Washington?
No, I think that's it. Just obviously really, really dependent on Beal.
Okay. You guys have a couple more days to do this till the 10th. If you haven't signed up yet at awesemo.com/join, awesemo.com/join. If you use the promo code 2020, you get 20 days of Awesemo Plus Platinum all access membership for $20. It's $1 a day. It's really the best promotion we've run in a long time, maybe ever, outside of, giving away memberships or subscriptions and such for winning contests and stuff. This is the best promotion we've done. It's 2020 is the sign up code. $20 Awesemo Plus for just $20. You're talking the ownership projections, player projections, all of our tools, all of the premium articles, the lineup builder, and so much more. If you haven't checked it out, head over to awesemo.com/join. Use that 2020, get $20 or 20 days for just $20 of Awesemo Plus Platinum membership. All those tools developed, used every day by Alex Baker, #1 ranked DFS player in the world. Or if you're looking to step it up and just say, you know what, I'm going all in, I'm diving in head first, use the sign up code. Don't use 2020 if you want to actually get a yearly pass, because you can get that same Awesemo Plus Platinum yearly pass $200 off by using the promo code New Year. It's up till the January 10th and then it's over. New Year, all one word, 20% off Awesemo Plus Platinum yearly pass. That's a $200 discount. So if you want 20 days for $20, use 2020. If you want 20% off a full year pass, use New Year, one word, awesemo.com/join. All right, let's keep it rolling. Boston and San Antonio. I was really expecting Daniel Tice to be out today because Taco Fall was recalled. And yeah, maybe you could argue that they just brought him back for whatever reason. But I thought Tice was going to be out earlier in the day. He's available to play. So Enes Kanter is not somebody that I would have any interest in at this point. And really the front court now gets kind of ugly. But Kemba Walker is also back. He'll be eased into action. He will have his minutes limited today. And he's been out. God, he was out for over a week with an illness. So
yeah, I know at one point had like 103 fever.
Wow. Okay. So he's back, but he will be limited. If Kemba was really cheap, I would be really tempted to play him, because you always see situations like this where, yeah, we'll ease him back. We'll see. And then he's fine and he plays 33 minutes and explodes. But now that Kemba's back and Daniel Tice is healthy, Boston isn't nearly as appealing as they might have been.
No, they're not. They have a 115 team total too, which is higher than I would have expected based on how little interest I have in this team. But I think it's because the salaries on everyone have come up with Kemba being out, and with him back, even if he's limited, I assume he's not limited in term. It's not. I don't expect it to be like, oh, he played 20 minutes or something like that. I'm expecting 28, 30 minutes from him, enough to where he still screws up the usage for the other guys that are playing alongside of him, like Tatum, like Brown, like Hayward. So with all of those guys' salaries coming back up, and Kemba coming back, there's just a lot of options that I like more than everyone on Boston today.
All right. So is there not much you even want to discuss with the Celtics?
There's not. I mean, outside of stating the obvious and saying that like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Gordon Hayward are good, and it's possible they have good games. Like, there's nothing that I can point to with any of them to say like I think this is a good spot for them, or I think I'm going to get a lot of them. So
no, I mean I'm in the same position, so yeah. I have a tough time getting to anything here with any frequency at all. The San Antonio Spurs coming off a blowout win against the Milwaukee Bucks. Yeah, pretty impressive. And Giannis played 34 minutes in that game. They ended up winning by 22 points at home. DeJounte Murray, though, minutes are still a bit down. However, he was yanked at the end of that game. He would have played about 28. So pretty much around where he's been. And then your usual suspects, pretty much the same thing we've been getting here, barring any unforeseen news leading up to tip-off. But yeah, it's a Boston defense that is impressive. They are significant favorites here at home. And the Spurs have a 107.3 total, even though this game, like you said, actually has the third highest over-under on the slate. You generally don't like this spot against the Celtics, especially with a Spurs team that has underwhelmed all season long. Maybe there's something you like here. Maybe you're buying into a kind of discounted DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, not really. I think that DeRozan and Murray look like the two best options for me from San Antonio and really from this game. DeJounte Murray, like you said, the minutes are still not consistently there. I gave him 28 minutes again, but I'll admit I think that's kind of towards the top of his range based on what we've seen recently. But 5,400, I don't mind going there right now. In the crunch I did before the show, I got right around the field, so I feel pretty neutral about him. DeRozan, I think, is underpriced a little bit in terms of his ceiling, but he does take a little bit of a hit in terms of production playing alongside Murray. It's still not a good matchup against Boston, and there's a lot of other options that I actually feel really good about. So I don't see myself getting to much DeRozan. I think Murray will be my highest owned guy from San Antonio, but he's not going to be that highly owned for me either.
All right, a little bit of discussion in our YouTube chat about LaMarcus Aldridge. I'm assuming that you're not going to have much Aldridge at all today.
I'm not. Obviously he's LaMarcus Aldridge, and Boston hasn't been the toughest matchup this year in the paint. But I just think that there's other forward options we'll get to that I feel better about. Not to mention, it's really tough because there's so much value at power forward today, and then so many top end guards to pay up for that I think a lot of my lineups are going to be going that route.
And a lot of lineups going to be stars and scrubs.
Yeah,
me too. At least it feels that way right now. Like you said, man, there is a value galore at the power forward position. I have to scroll down a decent ways to get to Aldridge. He's right in the middle for me, though. Like, I don't think he's bad at 73 on DraftKings. He's 73 on FanDuel. I don't hate it. And you said the Boston front court really isn't the same dominant defensively as it was before, but they're still very good. And overall, it's a great defensive team. So this is kind of a game that I don't know. I don't really have any strong feelings either way about either team.
That's pretty much how I am for the first 4 games on the slate. Like when I was writing the deep dive today, I was going game by game, kind of figuring things out. After this game, I was just like, are there any plays on the slate that I actually like?
It does feel that way. It certainly does. Let's talk about Atlanta and Houston. I'm assuming we could have a decent amount to discuss here.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Highest total on the slate by 13 points, almost 237. Rockets 8-point road favorites, 122.5 total, 114.5 for the Hawks. No Russell Westbrook today for the Houston Rockets. That's a pretty big development there. He's going to be sitting out of this game with to get some rest. They're still 8-point favorites. James Harden is 12-8 on DraftKings, 11-2 on FanDuel. So big time difference there from site to site. Russell Westbrook was – here's the thing. DraftKings preemptively priced Harden up because it's a back-to-back. And Westbrook's been sitting out on back-to-backs.
Right, but they still didn't price him up enough for the spot, I don't think, especially with the amount of power forward value that there is. I still think it's pretty easy to get to Harden.
Okay.
In the crunch I did before the show, I got north of 80% on DraftKings. It's a really good spot against Atlanta. They're a fast team. They don't play much defense. Since last year, Harden's played a little over 2,300 minutes without Westbrook or Chris Paul on the floor. 1.81 DraftKings points per minute, 43.4% usage rate, 46.3% assist percentage. This season alone, he's played without Westbrook. He's averaged 1.86 DraftKings points per minute, 47.1% usage rate, 46.5% assist percentage, really similar to the overall numbers. So, and you're still expecting 38 plus minutes from Harden, assuming that this game's competitive. So it's not a play that I'm looking to fade or be underweight on. I'm jamming in Harden and kind of just moving on from there.
Yeah, and it's kind of easy to do this because we are going to get a decent amount of value. I love him as well. My only question to you, and I said no, was I do think, at 12-8, I'll put it to you this way. You could absolutely be right that he is still not expensive enough, but it is, oh, wow, Bradley Beal is out. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But I do think it'll be enough to keep him from being like mega chalk. Right now, we've got him projected at 26% on DraftKings, 40% on FanDuel, and there's no surprise why.
That's right. Yeah, I agree with you that the salary is high enough where it will at least curb his ownership somewhat.
Right.
But even at 12,800 on DraftKings, I have him projected for 5.7x.
Right. Oh, no, I'm with you. I just think it's it's at least going to keep it. It's at least going to cap it a little bit, which makes it really nice.
Yeah, I like the salary where it is. It's not one of those days where you're just going to get 80% own James Harden and have to figure out what to do with it.
Right. They're getting away from Harden with Russell Westbrook out on a team of otherwise no-name scrubs. And look, I say that in the sense of Capella's a very good basketball player, but Capella's not creating his own shots. He takes nothing away from James Harden. And then the rest of this team, I guess they released Gary Clark, but in all seriousness, like PJ Tucker and House and even Eric Gordon, man, sure, Eric Gordon will get some shots up, but there's nothing on this team that can take like food out of Harden's mouth unless he's just missing every shot. And even if that's the case, he's still going to get to the line. So yeah, love it. But the rest of Houston, we don't need to spend a ton of time on Harden. We already pretty much banged this out, and it's obvious as to where we're going with him and where anybody should on this slate, especially against Atlanta in a 237 total game, which calls into question the rest of this Houston team now that you got such a good matchup, such a good spot, and no Westbrook. Like you said, right at the top of the show, Eric Gordon comes into play, whether you want him to or not.
Yeah, and there's a couple of reasons I like Gordon. For one, just kind of ignoring the matchup, he's shooting 31.3% from three this season. For the year, he's at 30, or for his career, he's at 37.2%. So you assume that he's going to start making more threes. He's just not making his shots. And then, obviously it's a good matchup against Atlanta. But the thing that really stands out is just how big of a difference it makes for him when he gets to play without Harden, without Westbrook, without Paul on the floor. And when Harden and Westbrook are both playing, he gets 0 minutes without either of them on the floor since their minutes are staggered and one of them is always playing. Today, I expect Gordon's minutes to be staggered with Harden. So you'll get around 30% of Eric Gordon's minutes with James Harden on the bench. Since last year, he's played about 200 minutes without Gordon or without Harden, Westbrook, or Paul on the floor. He's averaged 1.36 DraftKings points per minute. The usage obviously goes way up. The assist percentage goes way up. And then, with Harden on the floor, he's at 0.68 points per minute. But if you assume about 30% of his minutes are coming without Harden, it still comes out to about 0.88 DraftKings points per minute in a good matchup against Atlanta. I would expect 30 to 32 minutes from him here. And he's still really cheap and not that popular. He's getting some ownership, but there's value plays getting a lot more ownership than he is. I think he's one of the better values on the slate.
Appreciate that, Darren Anderson. Appreciate the super chat from you, man. I feel like we've been saying Eric Gordon's shot is going to start falling, like since he's been back since he was in New Orleans. I feel like we've been saying this for a long time. It doesn't really matter because he's cheap and you have to play him, but the perennially disappointing Eric Gordon is a real thing. It just
that is true.
It always happens, man. And what is his ownership coming in at right now?
17% on DraftKings.
He's up to 20% now.
Okay. By the way, though, like last season, 36% from three. This season, 31.
Yeah.
So it's not even like it's just that he's gotten bad. Like he's even shooting worse than last season by a lot.
Right. Oh no, it's dismal, man. What about the rest of Houston outside of Gordon and Harden?
Yeah, PJ Tucker should play a lot of minutes. He's cheap. He gets no usage. You're hoping he grabs a bunch of rebounds. But it's perfectly fine getting the PJ Tucker as a value option. You're just not going to be very excited about it. But this is the kind of game where he should do well. Extra possessions, plenty of rebounding opportunities. I have him behind Gordon, but as still a decent point per dollar option. Capella, I think, looks really good. The only difficult part for me is getting to him from a roster construction standpoint. But he is my favorite center, excluding the guys that are power forward center eligible. He's averaged 1.21 points per minute without Westbrook alongside Capella. He should do well in this matchup. So I think Capella looks good. Gordon I like, and then Tucker I can stomach kind of.
Okay. Norman Powell is officially ruled out for this one. So yep. Jojo Mojo says, when did 36% 3-point shooting become bad? Well, no, he's shooting 31%.
Right. The point is that he's a career 37% shooter. Even last year when he was disappointing, he shot 36%. This year he's shooting 31%. My point was that he's going to improve.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, he's also averaging 0.61 fantasy points per minute. Uh, Last year wasn't quite as bad, 0.78, but you also have to take into account there's no Chris Paul and there's no Russell Westbrook. So there you have it. Eric Gordon will get the opportunities. This team is a super low usage team outside of James Harden. Granted, he's the highest usage player in the league, but there will still be opportunities going to guys like Eric Gordon, whether you like it or not. I personally don't, but you don't have much of a choice here. Atlanta, on the other side, at home, still have a pretty high implied total, 114.5, because this game is just going to be played at a lightning fast pace and Houston's middle of the road defensively. But I guess the first one here would be Trae Young. What are your thoughts on Young, and do you find yourself getting to him? You know, if you're going to be paying up for Harden, um, you mentioned there's a lot of guards to pay up for, but I can't ignore that Doncic is also on the slate, definitely prioritizing Harden, especially with Doncic playing Denver. But Giannis is playing Golden State. We'll get to all of these guys. Point being, there are a lot of expensive guys. Would Trae Young be your second favorite expensive player today?
No, I have him behind Luca too.
Okay.
I like Trae Young a lot. Like he's one of my favorite players, but with the way ownership was for the crunch I did before the show, we had 17% on DraftKings going to him compared to 14 to Luca, 12 to Lowry, Brandon Ingram only at 15%. So with how it was there, I'm still getting to some Trae Young, but getting under the field on him, getting more Luca, getting more Lowry, getting more Levine, getting more Ingram, among guys kind of in that upper tier price range. I think it is a good spot for Trae Young. He's averaged 1.4 DraftKings points per minute this year. He's played 37, 37, and 39 minutes in his 3 games back from injury. There's nothing really negative I have to say about Young, except for he's more expensive than Lowry, Ingram, Levine, and last I checked, higher owned than Luca.
By the way, there was somebody questioning whether or not Kemba was on a minute limit. Said he hasn't seen it anywhere. Yeah, he's. I mean, like I said earlier, Adam, I don't want to harp on this, but maybe he won't be, and maybe we'll all be surprised. But
right,
he's
they said he is. Whether he actually is
exactly
whatever.
He is expected to be on a minutes limit, according to head coach Brad Stevens. So that's all I can tell you. I like Trae Young today. I mean, I don't think it's a spot where, if I play hard and I got to play Trae Young, but there is at least something to be said for the Hawks are not a good team. So if, Harden's in there for 4 quarters, that means Trae Young is in there for 4 quarters as well. If you want to factor that into your decision making, Trae Young likely going to play a shit ton of minutes today, probably 37, 38 if this game stays competitive. And I really like that. Outside of him, the rest of Atlanta, outside of Jabari Parker being out, you pretty much, and Bruno Fernando, you've got the guys like, a priced up Kevin Huerter, who is, playing really well. The minutes are huge right now, but that price is a little bit difficult to get to. DeAndre Hunter, sorry, and Cam Reddish, DeAndre Bembry. Like, these are the type of guys on this Hawks team right now. It's difficult to have a ton of faith in them, even if they're going up against the Houston team that plays at an elevated pace. So I do want to talk about John Collins and Kevin Huerter before we move on.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you too. It's a team that just has a lot of bodies. I think that Collins is a reasonable, secondary option, but you run into the same issues that we were talking about with Aldridge, where paying up at power forward today, on one hand, it's contrarian because people are going to pay down at that position. But on the other hand, there's so many pay down options at the position. It's pretty likely that the best way to approach your lineups is to be paying up for these really high upside guards and then taking the value at the forward position. So it'll make it tough to prioritize Collins. I think that Alex Len looks like a decent value. I'm assuming we haven't seen a starting lineup, but I'm assuming he'll get the start for Fernando. But either way, I think you should get 25, 26 minutes. He's greater than a fantasy point per minute guy. He's not dirt cheap, but he's cheap enough where I think he offers some value, especially as a pivot to what is looking like a very popular Mitchell Robinson.
Very popular. And well, we actually had a couple of people saying Alex Len is going to have a big game when I was just looking at chat a moment ago. The one benefit to Alex Len, and then we can move on, is if he plays 26 minutes or so, he's at least a solid enough per minute guy, well over a fantasy point per minute, that he can give you what you need. Will he? Maybe not. Might play 15 minutes and you'll be devastated, but that's what you get when you risk running with Alex Len. At least there is a ceiling to speak of there, whereas a lot of these other guys on this team and in this price range, you can't say the same about them. Let's move on to Dallas and Denver. I don't know how much time you're going to want to spend on this game, but 220.5 total. Look, it's higher than I thought it would be. The Mavs are 3-point favorites here. 111.8 implied total for them, 108.8 for the Denver Nuggets. We'll start with Luka. I mean, sure, he's an outstanding play every single night, but on a night where Russell Westbrook is out and James Harden faces the Atlanta Hawks at a similar price point, and sure, you have Luka over Trae Young, but in terms of your exposures to these guys, I'm surprised you found it easier to get to Luka than Trae Young today. Tell us why.
I have Luka projected for like 67 DraftKings points, so that helps. But Denver, they don't play at a fast pace, but they have been really bad defensively recently.
Very surprising, by the way.
Yeah, and now not having Will Barton, that certainly shouldn't help either. There's a chance you get Torrey Craig in the starting lineup, but my assumption is that Porter replaces Barton, and that should have a positive impact for Luka. He's been basically Luka this year has produced normally at about the same rate that Harden does without Westbrook on the floor, which is pretty insane. And then obviously Luka's numbers go up without Porzingis as well. I'm expecting 34 to 36 minutes from him here, the potential for a little bit more, but close to a 40% usage rate, close to a 50% assist percentage without Porzingis on the floor. Rebounding percentage gets up to almost 20%. He's just a great per minute player. And I think that Harden is the number one priority. I think that he'll be higher owned than Luka, and he should be. But at the same time, on DraftKings, you get guard forward eligibility for Luka, which makes it a little bit easier to get him into lineups. On FanDuel, he's just easier to get to in general because he's only like 11,200. I think that he's someone where if projected ownership were to get high, then I would start to give more priority to someone like Trae Young, who is a lot cheaper and who lets me do some different things with my lineups. But with ownership on him being projected as low as it is right now, getting him into my lineups is something that seems pretty appealing.
I want to back up for 1 second. Cam Reddish is back in the starting lineup for Atlanta. We just got the starting lineup a moment ago. He's $3,300 on DraftKings. I have to ask you, is there any appeal here, knowing that this game should see a lot of points and he's basically minimum salary and people were willing to play guys like Kevin Knox?
Yeah, there's appeal. Obviously, his rates go down when he plays alongside Trae Young, but he's essentially minimum salary. He's, you would think, going to get like 28, 30 minutes now. Obviously, that makes me less excited about Len with him not starting. But I think that, Reddish ends up being in the Kevin Knox, PJ Tucker type of value play where it's not surprising at all if he just goes out there, runs around and gets no fantasy points or does really bad. But it's just so hard for players at the salary to really hurt you.
For sure. And Collins at the 5, Hunter at the 4. So
so increased rebounding for them.
Yep. It makes me like Collins a little bit more, but with Fernando out, it's not a big surprise anyway. Kind of. Oh, and by the way, Len not in the starting lineup.
Right.
So that's the big thing here. Anything else for Dallas? For me, I mean, like I said, I'm having probably a little bit more difficult of a time getting to Doncic than you are. Like I've stated a million times, I still I'm always going to land on some Doncic because he's playing big minutes and he's one of the best per minute guys in the entire league. So I don't think 12-3 on DraftKings is overpriced at all, or 11-5 on FanDuel. But DraftKings, he's actually cheaper than James Harden. The rest of Dallas, however, is there anything here that you like with Kristaps Porzingis ruled out for the 4th straight game?
Nothing else really looks that appealing to me. Prices have come up on most guys. You had Tim Hardaway Jr. come back last game, only played 21 minutes, didn't close. I assume he plays 27, 28 minutes, but he still doesn't really look that appealing here. It's pretty much Luka or nothing from Dallas.
What are we doing with Will Barton out on the Denver side of the ball with Michael Porter Jr. right now coming into this game, presumably going to get a decent amount of ownership right now on DraftKings, a lot, 42%. On FanDuel, he's coming in at 22%. And then on Yahoo, we've got Michael Porter Jr. at 31%. So there's a lot of ownership headed towards Michael Porter Jr. today. We know that Michael Malone has been trying to work him into the lineup a little bit more recently over the past month or so. And the backup minutes for I think Porter actually had been playing the backup minutes for kind of all over the place, right? I don't think he was like a consistent direct backup for anyone over the last few games.
Yeah, he's kind of taken like Malik Beasley's backup minutes, and then he's also been backing
Harris.
up Barton.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my assumption is that he starts. We saw him start for Gary Harris a couple games ago. He played 26 minutes in that game. There is certainly a chance that Torrey Craig starts here for defensive reasons against Luka, but with Gary Harris already in the starting lineup, I'm expecting Harris to draw plenty of Luka and then to put Porter out there to try and replace some of Barton's offense. So that's my assumption. I have him in for 26 minutes here. I think it could go a little bit higher, depending on how the game goes. But the thing that just stands out is how cheap he is. His price tag, for whatever reason, DraftKings has been really, really aggressive in increasing pricing recently, except they've just totally left Michael Porter alone. They actually dropped his price tag from where it was his last time out, I believe. So he stands out as a really good value at a price point where it's just a lot easier for him to succeed than to disappoint.
Can't really take on-off numbers with him, in the starting lineup or not, unless you want to get like a 30-minute sample. So it's kind of not really worth it. But he's played 67 minutes with Jokic and Murray on the floor. He's averaging 1.01 fantasy points per minute. On the season overall, Michael Porter Jr. Averaging a respectable 1.04 fantasy points per minute. Obviously, jumping into the starting lineup isn't going to help, but I still think this is a pretty favorable spot. Anything else for Denver that you like?
Not really. I mean, Jokic and Murray are the same pretty much every day, where they're capable of going nuts, but neither one is someone that I'm really getting to.
New Orleans and Chicago. I want to start with the Chicago side of the ball because Wendell Carter Jr. is out, assuming that Daniel Gafford plays in this one. But Thaddeus Young was spotted working with the first team. Sounds like football, but we're the first team in shoot around today alongside Markkanen. So my assumption is that Markkanen starts at the 5. And if that's the case, you and I did discuss this a bit earlier. I know you don't have him playing a lot of minutes there. I think if he starts alongside Young, they're locking in like 7 or 8 minutes in the first and third quarter, not including any overlap later in the game if Gafford's off the floor. So I like Markkanen a lot more when he plays at the 5. I think his price tag's very reasonable today. Thad Young's salary has come up a little bit, but in the event that Thad starts at the 4 and Markkanen at the 5, I do have interest at 6,900. What are you doing with the Bulls?
Yeah, I think you and I are actually on the same page as far as Markkanen's minutes. Like, I think that the bulk of his minutes come with the 5. I just don't think that they all do.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah.
And I also think that he gets more run now. Like, he kind of been stuck at 30 minutes in a lot of games where he wasn't getting any minutes at the 5. Now I have him at 34. So I think he's a good option. He's reasonably priced. It's just that, again, I'm paying down at that position so much, and then it opens up being able to get to Harden and Luka and guys like that. So Markkanen, I think, is a good play. I don't know exactly how much of him I'll get to, but out of the forwards in his price range, I would say that now that Gordon is starting, or now that Birch is starting for Orlando, I would say I have Markkanen a little ahead of Gordon.
Okay. Oh, by the way, we're doing a giveaway where you can win a free NBA yearly pass, $400 value. All you got to do is like, retweet, reply, and follow over on Twitter at awesemo_com. $400 value. Just guess which player will have the most fantasy points on tonight's NBA DFS slate. Simple as that, man. Go to awesemo_com. And if you don't have a Twitter account yet and you're playing DFS, you got to get a Twitter account. Not just so you can follow myself and Adam, our handles are at the top, but because they're really helpful for DFS to keep yourself in the loop. And I'm not just talking about the drama. There's a whole lot more. So head over and check out that giveaway. Get your $400 Awesome plus yearly pass. Someone's got to win it. We'll pick a random winner from from whoever gets the answers right today. Anything else for Chicago that you like? For me, it's pretty much marketing, and it is against the Pelicans. So, there's always going to be guys that come into the mix, but Levine's price tag is exorbitantly high.
I love Levine.
Man, paying $9K for him for me is very, very prohibitive.
Yeah, it's just I mean, I like the matchup against the Pels. I like that Drew Holiday's out, one of their best individual defenders. It's a game where Levine should be able to get out, run in transition. The offense should really run through him. He's playing huge minutes. He's averaged 36.7 minutes per game over his last 10. I think the price tag, like, there is definitely some sticker shock there, but I think it's well deserved based on how many minutes he's playing, based on the matchup, based on how many field goal attempts he gets up.
Okay. What about the rest of Chicago?
Not a whole lot else. Like, Thad Young, obviously, if he starts, is reasonably appealing, but his salary did already come up. He's up to 5,400 on both DraftKings and FanDuel, so it's more of a secondary option for me.
How about New Orleans?
Brandon Ingram really stands out without Drew Holiday. This season, Ingram's averaged 1.3 DraftKings points per minute without Holiday on the floor. 31% usage rate, about a 25.5% assist percentage. I expect his minutes to be staggered with Lonzo Ball, which is what they did against Utah in the last game. Obviously, should be a little bit better matchup against Chicago, even though defensively they've been really good lately. Josh has talked about why those numbers aren't necessarily something we should totally buy into. But Ingram's just, been really, really good this year. The minutes should be there, and he's going to have a big role as, a playmaker and the scorer here. So he really stands out. Josh Hart stands out for value. I think he should play around 30 minutes here. Got the start against Utah last time. I'm expecting the same thing here. So those two look like really good plays to me.
Anything else?
Nope.
Utah and New York Knicks. Stick around after the show, by the way. Live Before Lock is coming up next, taking you till 7. And hey, we're above the 3K mark today. Appreciate you guys. You can hit us with that thumbs up if you enjoy the show. It's the easiest way to support us, and we really do appreciate it. Utah and New York. I want to get Utah out of the way first, all right? Because they're monster favorites here, Adam. 14-point favorites at home. Mike Conley remains out. Outside of that, it's pretty much par for the course. And the Knicks are going to be down Marcus Morris and Julius Randle. I'm surprised they're only 14-point dogs, honestly. What are you doing with the Jazz?
Yeah, I mean, with Utah, I think that none of their guys look like
I'm sorry, go ahead. I thought it was Marcus Morris. It's Markieff that just got ruled out.
None of their guys look like core plays for me, but the main 4 starters, Mitchell, Gobert, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Joe Ingles, all look like pretty reasonable secondary options that aren't overpriced but aren't underpriced relative to other plays on the slate. It is a good matchup against New York. We know that Utah generally will, even if they're up by 15, 20 points, they'll leave their guys in until a couple minutes are left in the fourth quarter. So that's always appealing too. I think Gobert and Mitchell are probably the 2 easiest to get to, but all 4 of the main starters are just secondary options for me.
I'll tell you how bad the Knicks are, man. With Randall and Marcus Morris off the floor, the only person, Barrett's played 94 minutes, 1.11 fantasy points per minute. Portis is at 1.01. Knox is 0.73. Robinson's below a fantasy point per minute. Damian Dotson, Dennis Smith, Ntilikina. Like, these are some rough numbers. Peyton hasn't played enough to really make a difference here, but Julius Randle being off the floor is a huge deal. Marcus Morris, also a huge deal because he actually has a pretty sizable usage rate this season, 24%, and Randle leads the league in pretty much every relevant category. So this is huge. Bobby Portis, clearly the guy that is going to get most of the attention here. Kevin Knox should draw a start, but the guy stinks. He has minimum salary. So, I mean, obviously we'll get there, and it's a tough matchup against Utah, but Bobby Portis, man.
Yeah, I'm not expecting Knox to start unless that's already been announced, but I don't think it makes a big difference either way. Portis, though, should, I think, play 28, 30 minutes without
Randle.
Bullock's
going to be back in the lineup, and then
that's my assumption since he started yesterday.
You're probably right.
So yeah, I mean, I think Portis is the one that really stands out. He's among that group of cheap power forwards. Him, Porter, Tucker, that you can go to open up value. It's not a good matchup against Utah, but he's around a point per minute producer. Even if you shave a little bit off of that for the matchup, you're talking about someone that is going to have a lot of opportunities to shoot and looks to shoot, and the minute should be there for him at a close to minimum salary. So even though obviously it's scary taking guys against Utah, I think Portis is a good value.
Josh Ingerman, EMAC coming up next. Eric Gordon starting for Russell Westbrook. Outside of Portis, though, it's ugly on this team. Can you prioritize anyone against the Jazz in what should be a monster blowout?
I would be interested. Well, I mean, I'm still interested, but I'd be really interested in Mitchell Robinson at 5K on DraftKings, except he's getting tons of ownership.
Yeah,
and
that
he's
is
just
scary as hell.
Right. Like he's a good point per dollar option, but he's such a volatile player that I don't mind being underweight on him and taking some shots on other guys. But I do think he's okay. RJ Barrett has a 29.5% usage rate without Randall or Morris on the floor this year. I expect him to be one of the focal points of the offense. It's just a matter of, how effective can he be. So I think that Portis is the priority for me. If you want to take some shots at Kevin Knox, that's fine. If you want to take some shots at, a Barrett or a Robinson, it's fine. But Portis is the only guy that I actually feel good about getting into my lineups.
All right, let's close it out. Golden State, Milwaukee. Bucks big favorites on the road, 13.5 points. Golden State Warriors will be without D'Angelo Russell. They will get Draymond Green back in the lineup. And Steph Curry shot a basketball today, so that's good. Close us out, Adam, both sides of this game.
George Hill out for Milwaukee, so I think that is interesting because maybe you get a couple extra minutes for Eric Bledsoe here in a good matchup. I think you probably get a couple extra minutes for Dante DiVincenzo, who is guard and forward eligible on DraftKings at a cheap price point in a good matchup. Those two guys I think I get to the most from Milwaukee. Obviously, if you're getting to Giannis, that's perfectly fine, but I have Luka and Harden far enough ahead of him where they'll be my priorities at the top end. So it's pretty much Bledsoe and DiVincenzo for me from Milwaukee. From Golden State, I'm expecting Eric Pascal started last game. He started and Bowman started, and then Burks started the second half over Bowman. I'm expecting Green to replace Bowman/Burks in the starting lineup and Pascal to hold his spot. He's 4K. It's not a play that you're super confident in, but it is worth noting that he played 30 minutes last game. He's very cheap. He's another power forward option down near or down at 4K on DraftKings. And without Curry or Russell on the floor this year, he's got a usage rate up over 23%. So I think the opportunities will be there for him. What he does with them, he's facing Milwaukee. So who knows? It's obviously a very good defensive team, but he probably does go a little bit lower owned than the guys priced around him. And I have him projected really similarly to guys like PJ Tucker.
Okay. And anything else from this game on the other side?
Draymond is fine too. Not a priority for me, but should be playing point guard for 32 minutes.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
That'll do it. Hey, thanks for hanging out as always. Stick around. Josh, EMAC coming up next, taking you till 7. And we'll be back with you tomorrow. We'll run it back on the deeper dive presented by Super Draft. Good luck tonight, everyone.
And we're live. What's going on, everybody? Live before lock Wednesday, January 8th. Eddie picked up a knock during warm-ups. He's a late scratch. I'm bringing you below me. Welcome, EMAC.
Oh, not sure that's the invitation or welcome I was looking for, but there we are.
I have to point down. I can't point left or right. We're not. We have the screen share. So you're.
Well, when you said below me, that was
BELOW below me.
In any event, we're off the rails already.
Welcome.
Yeah.
I
happen to be around and I'm traveling this weekend, so I figured, hey, I can jump in and help Eddie out. So no problem there. Did the podcast last night with Rinpack. That was fun. We got the article under my belt now for it actually held pretty well. Other than I said, I couldn't find a risky value today. This is the first time in weeks where there wasn't someone where I just said, hey, let's present both sides of the case. Not meaning they're a bad play. Like last night, it was Steven Adams. The day before, it was Thaddeus Young. And it was just laying out both sides of the argument. We've talked about Christian Wood a few times in that piece. Just saying, if you don't understand their regular baseline, just because you hear the buzz and they're chalky, just know what you're getting into when you select them for your player pool and then go appropriately from there. Just presenting both sides. Sure. So. Today it was the entire New York Knicks lineup, and then they had to go and rule out Randall. So there's potential, I guess, depending on who you trust. Thank God it's not Fizdale, but I guess Bobby Portis, perhaps Elfrid Payton, not the worst play. But the last two games tonight are not really the hammer.
I'm not super excited about a lot of this slate. However, there is a lot to talk about. But before we do any of that, we need to talk a little bit about Super Draft. It may just be the future of DFS. Getting rid of salaries, I think, is a very interesting wrinkle. So you have no salary restrictions. You have multipliers. Let's say James Harden is worth 1x. You might see someone like Michael Porter Jr. today be significantly higher than that. You could roster anybody you want. Doesn't matter. There are absolutely no restrictions. They have contests for the NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, PGA. You can be doing this all year round. Head to superdraft.io. Use the promo code AWESEMO. You can get yourself a free $20 in super cash on your first deposit of $100 or more. They have an app, so you can go to your app store and download that. There are no limits, just more winning. And can't talk too much about this right now, but you guys really need to look into following us on Twitch. Maybe you're watching the streams on Twitch. There may or may not be something in the near future that is very relevant to you, but it can only happen via our Twitch stream. Putting that out there.
Would this be this show? Would it be an upcoming show? Could it be any show?
Well, I would love for you guys to be following us on Twitch one way or the other.
I have it so it sets up and it dings every time we go live on my phone.
Same for me, which is fun, which is good to know when I'm on a show. Less interesting when I am not and I get a few of them. But potentially for a future show, maybe something this week as well. Keep your eye on Twitch, guys. It's going to be a big one.
I'm going to South Carolina this weekend. I've looked and I've seen, it looks like they're a DFS-friendly state as far as I can tell.
To my knowledge, they are. I did some... Yeah. Actually, when I was there, it was the All-Star break, so I don't know.
Well, I went to Iowa and Quad Cities, and lo and behold, they are not a DFS-friendly state.
Which is crazy, because what else do you have to do in Iowa?
I don't know, but our hotel literally was on the Mississippi and the view was of Illinois. And I'm like, it's taunting me. What excuse can I use today to take a car and drive over the bridge without my wife getting too suspicious of what I'm doing?
So you mentioned your view. What is your view of this slate right now? What is standing out most to you?
All right. It's easier to get to James Harden than I thought. It makes me think, I don't know that easier is the right term. It's very doable. The question then becomes, have you seen the movie Over the Top?
Yes.
Okay. It's an arm wrestling. This is what it feels like. You've got Harden, and then on the other side, you've kind of got Luka Doncic. Maybe you talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo, some of those guys where you're like, okay, what can I get from a pivot standpoint? Now, I hadn't looked since about 2 hours ago, but I want to see what our ownership is. So Harden still is not. It feels like he should be more dramatic than being on about a third of the rosters.
Well, he's on more than a third on my FanDuel rosters. That much I can tell
I'm
you.
feeling like doubling him tonight might be the way to go. And I usually don't say that. I usually look at the syllabus. I started writing up trying to get some leverage plays against Harden, and I started looking at it. I'm like, do I really want to go with Luka? He's got to score 15 more points than Harden to make it worthwhile, 10 to 15. So we would need a 50, 55 fantasy point from Harden, which is probably a reasonable floor. Anything less than 50 or 55 is a dud from him. He's gotten 80 plus in 4 of his last 11. We saw this matchup before. He set a career, or was just shy of his career high, 60 points in the game, got 80 or 85 fantasy points, and he didn't play in the fourth quarter, Josh.
We got a little bit of, I don't mean to change the subject. We got a little news. Terrence Davis is starting for the Raptors.
Wow, that means the Fred VanVleet contest is not going to have McCaw in the lineup.
You're still good, McCaw.
Oh God, McCaw's. Are they hating on Rondé Hollis-Jefferson because they started him one day in a row? You can't start him 2 days in a row.
Kyle Lowry, Terrence Davis, Patrick McCaw, OG Anunoby, Serge Ibaka.
Wow, I did not see that one coming.
I don't know. I mean, I thought Terrence Davis was going to play the last game, and that didn't happen. I have no idea what minutes to give this dude, but I'm just going to give him enough minutes that I don't get him. I'm sure I'll pay for that in the long run. I'll just go back to getting 80% Kyle Lowry and just zip my lips.
How do you feel about Gary Clark, who got waived yesterday? They could have used him today. Houston?
Houston? Yeah. Can't guarantee the salary. They're in a rough spot financially this season.
The last time these two teams played, it was 158-111 in regulation. Jabari Parker was in the mix. Young was in the mix. Collins was not. Let's see. Len played 15 minutes. Bembry 23. We had some Tyrone Wallace. So there's a lot of different players. Chandler Parsons managed to get his revenge on there for 16 minutes. Revenge against his knees, I think. But on the other side, in that game, we did have Westbrook. Did not have Capella. He was sick. So it was Tyson Chandler. So we have like a whole new cast of characters here. But the end result is probably likely to be something similar. But how fun would this one be to have perhaps a Trae Young and a Harden on each side?
I mean, it's certainly going to be a Harden on one side. I'm going to have that dude in almost everything I have today. Pretty hard to avoid.
So the standard relationship, Harden on one side.
Yes, exactly. Not as much Trae Young, but I'm still there. Too much Kyle Lowry as of right now. Kyle Lowry soaking up the old ownership in my lineups.
Yeah, he's one of the. He was the guy I said that was kind of your true pivot away from Harden. Use that savings somewhere else. Go with Kyle Lowry or Vooch against the Wizards here.
You know what would be really awesome today?
If we got 4,000 views.
Oh, yeah, that would be cool too. I was going to go with if everybody hit the like button. I do need to circle back. We did get a super chat from Darren Anderson. Is 100% Harden Lowry too much Harden and Lowry? I mean, I am dangerously close to that, so I might not be the best person to ask. He also said, what range of DK Fantasy Cruncher scores are good scores on this type of slate? There's no such thing as good scores. They're all relative to the slate. So you can find out what the maximum score you can get with your projections is by just running a crunch with no settings. Just the projections, no randomness, full exposure, one unique. Then you'll know the max that you could possibly get. At that point, keep it within 5% of that.
All right.
Easy rule of thumb.
I think that's the way to go. And a lot of people don't always do that. That's one of the things that Alex talks about. And I used it a lot in baseball just to set the baseline. I haven't done as much with basketball because of the way I do player pools and leveraging things and all of that. I'm not quite as worried about the overall high score, but I do tend to look at it from probably once or twice a week. Whereas baseball, I looked at it every single day. But all depends how many cash games I'm playing. I'm not playing very many today because all of a sudden I knew I was going to be on the show. And it's very hard for me to do cash game plus my silly little Fred VanVleet contest, as well as then, hey, actually make lineups. But I do want to shout out, I've just followed him. You're aware of Lincoln Hawk, right?
I have the Lincoln Hawk is the name. I believe Lincoln Hawk is the name of the band of Dan Humphrey's dad in Gossip Girl, but that's the best I can do.
Oh, well, it's also the character. Isn't it the character's name of Arnold Schwarzenegger in Over the Top?
Is it? That sounds
I thought
familiar.
it was.
But I'm pretty sure Lincoln Hawk is the name of the band from Gossip Girl. Lincoln Hawk.
Lincoln Hawk and Over the Top, Lincoln Hawk Band. Look at that. We're gonna trade pop
There you
culture
go.
references.
Rufus Humphrey.
Yeah.
It'd
There
be a
you
lot
go.
cooler for me if I had the over the top reference for his name and not the Gossip Girl reference. Yet here we are.
Well, I'm shouting out John Church, who goes by Lincoln Hawk 29, and I swear somehow he knows every time I talk about Over the Top. I get a tweet from him. I got a tweet from him today. I've probably done this 3 times, and I have 3 tweets from him. So thank you. I do appreciate that, and I'm now following you. That was there you go. 3 times is the charm there. But,
I'm very happy that not a lot of people roasting me for this. It is Sylvester Stallone, not Schwarzenegger. So you're getting corrected, and people are ignoring the fact that
Oh, did I say?
You said
Schwarzenegger?
Schwarzenegger, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I knew who you meant.
Well, I was thinking of the movie today, The Last Action Hero.
I haven't seen that since it came out, I believe.
And how did I get on that? Well, I watched that, actually rented it the day of the O.J. Simpson white Bronco chase, which was during, I want to say, was that the Houston, New York?
It was Houston. It was Houston somebody for sure. It might have been the day they got in the. No, that would have been different.
It was some sort of
Houston.
Playoff game.
Yeah, it was definitely Houston.
Yeah. So there we go. And I was thinking of O.J. Simpson because my friends were saying something about The Naked Gun because I sent them. They were talking about the announcers in it or something like that, and one of them is somehow related to George Brett, the Pine Tar incident, and I had seen that on Twitter yesterday, and I'd never actually seen him go crazy like that.
You've never seen that?
No, I don't know how I missed it. I mean, wow. I remember the Sports Illustrated and all that stuff back then, and it was like 1982 or whenever it was, because I was back when Sports Illustrated was like your main source of sports stuff. Don't worry, we'll get on basketball, but good God, it's like all of these things are coming home to roost all at the same time. But back to basketball, what do we like for value today, Josh?
Oh my God,
there's a lot.
Like is an interesting word because there's a lot. Let's just say I'm going to set the line at 4,500 or below. Dante DiVincenzo, PJ Tucker, Michael Porter Jr., Bobby Portis, Kevin Knox. Reggie Bullock, if you're interested. Guys like Gary Harris are available. There's kind of like an infinite amount of cheap guys to play today, which is good on DraftKings for people that are trying to play 12-8 James Harden or 12-3 Luka Doncic, 11-5 Giannis. Who is standing out to you from the value perspective?
It's all kind of coming full circle. I've gone away from and then back to Eric Gordon. I still think he's going to be a bust, so I'm kind of mixing in the Houston guys that I want. I'm messing around with a little bit of a game stack from that for some of my lineups, just because I think that might be a little bit amusing. I really don't want that many players from the late. Either of the late games, which is something I usually don't say because a lot of times you get some of those crummy defenses out there on the West Coast and you can have a little bit of fun. That's not the case. Phoenix is not in our lives. Golden State is going against even the secondary players. Will be a stranglehold defense likely from the Bucks there. So with regards to the people I think I will end up with the most, let me sort my little.
While you pull that up, I'm going to go ahead and let everybody know. You should head to our Twitter account, twitter.com/AwesomoNBA. I think somebody could probably drop this link in. You know what? I can actually drop this link in. Good like that. Check out the pinned tweet. You can win a free year of Awesemo Plus NBA Pass. That's a $399 value. All you got to do is retweet, like, and reply to that tweet. You got to be following that account and the Awesemo_com account. And all you have to do is reply with who you think has the most fantasy points on the slate. Get creative. Maybe you'll go with James Harden. But whatever you want to do, head to that Twitter account and check it out. E-Mac, I'm back to you. Who's your value?
All right. So I'm going to have, I'm just looking at where our projections refresh. I'm still going to end up with a reasonable amount of Jordan McRae. I like the fact that, and also Troy Brown by extension, here, but I like their opponent tonight with Orlando not having Jonathan Isaac. I think shakes up things just a little bit. It gives enough of the Wizards understudies that, let's rephrase that. It gives the Wizards have the second unit and the third unit. There is no first unit for the Wizards anymore. That's gone. So their second unit, which
they
will
only
be
have
doing
8
most
guys,
of the starting.
I think. Or
Yeah,
maybe
so you
9.
start looking at them and Ish Smith, and I think those guys are the way I want to go. I'm not as excited. Those are the 3 I want. Jan Mahimny, I think there are other ways to go, and I don't want to burn my center spot on him today. I don't really want to go with Isaiah Thomas. I've just been a little disappointed with how he's been playing recently, and
especially when he fights referees.
Well, that is true. I mean, sometimes you got to do that, but he does not. I haven't watched as many of the games as I normally watch for the Wizards, but now that we're getting done here with football, I'll be watching more. But he's just someone that doesn't seem to be right. And coming back from his last little injury that he had, I think he's someone that will get better. He's never going to be the same Isaiah Thomas that he was with Boston. That's long gone, but I still think he can be a comparable to Ish Smith. But right now I feel way more confident with Ish Smith. In that same game, I really, really, really like DJ Augustine. 13 on Yahoo, I think, is a steal for him.
Okay.
So those are kind of the cheaper guys that I like that are in the non-Houston Rockets category.
Okay. We just dropped the link into chat to sign up for Super Draft. Again, you get a $20 bonus of super cash on your first $100 deposit. Looking like they're going to have some overlay tonight in their biggest contest, so I think that you guys should go check that out. It'd be a great day to get in there. Anytime you can grab some overlay, it's going to be in your best interest. Thank you to Tanner T for the super chat. Macklemore and Herter or Eric Gordon and Miles Bridges. I don't have a lot of most of those guys.
I don't either. Herter's come up just a little bit in price, but he would be the guy I would go with. Amongst those 4, I think he is playing the best basketball right now, and I'm even going to go as far as to say it's probably the most talented of all of them. You're splitting hairs and crossing positions and doing a variety of things, but I would take the Herter side.
I don't have any Macklemore. I have 8% Herter. I have 11% Eric Gordon and 8% Miles Bridges. So I have to go to the Eric Gordon, Miles Bridges side because I don't have Ben Macklemore. Steve Finkelstein, friend of the program. Are you fellas opposed to running Bobby Portis out in cash games on FanDuel over Clint Capella? Thanks. Thumbs up, everyone. I have no issue with that.
I defer to you on FanDuel questions.
I mean, my first pick would be Capella for sure. Picking up more ownership, a slightly better value for me. But if that, $3,900 savings really changes the game for you at the other positions, I think it's a very reasonable stance to take.
Yeah, with that kind of price differential, you're looking at upgrading 2 mid-tier guys to secondary tier guys, and that can be a huge difference on FanDuel. The other thing over there that because I don't play there every day, I usually only play small slates and kind of on the weekends there, but because of the position scarcity, a lot of times that if you're just looking at stuff 1v1, it's hard to really tell where things are getting squeezed. A lot of nights it's like it could be the shooting guards. Sometimes it's the small forwards on the 2 or 3 game slates. Sometimes it's power forwards. Who would know that? But that's one of the supply and demand there can really drive your decisions. But those would probably be my top 2 choices for center spot there on FanDuel looking at my stuff.
We also got another super chat from a friend of the program, Dave. Would you go Maxi Kleber or Paul Millsap as a pivot off of PJ Tucker on FanDuel? I don't know why we're pivoting off of PJ Tucker. He's projected for 10% ownership. So I don't know what the pivot would be. You just mean, would you rather play Maxi Kleber, Paul Millsap, or PJ Tucker? If that's the question, then I would rather play PJ Tucker.
I would rather play Tucker. Don't worry about him not scoring. He's a guy that can get 40 fantasy points in a slop-tastic game like we very well may see tonight from the Atlanta side.
And I'm not even particularly fond of PJ Tucker today, but I don't have any Maxi, and
Maxi would be my second guy, but damn, you never know what Carlisle's going to do. Maxi goes from really not playing to starting to then anchoring the second unit front court to starting again than to really not playing again. It's just, even when you think the matchups would be good or bad for him, Carlisle's an excellent coach, and I think he makes the right personnel decisions, but that can be infuriating from a daily fantasy sports perspective.
See, what else we got coming in here? We did get an ownership update a couple minutes ago. I just saved what I hope is my last run of my lineups, but we obviously have 34 minutes to go, so all hell might break loose. Who knows?
We haven't talked about the third rail, Michael Porter Jr., the electrifying option. Are you for him? Are you against him? SJM just gave us would you go with Porter or would you go with PJ Tucker? I think I would go with Porter. I just think there's more available minutes. He usually plays on DK or Fantasy Draft.
Okay.
Usually I didn't read his full tweet or his full message, but he's usually Fantasy Draft cash a lot of times.
Look, I like Porter. I have him in for 24 minutes right now, but it's not as if those are guaranteed. I'm going to sneeze.
Did they? I don't know yet if they have announced his starting capabilities or his starting status, but I do want to point out that over the last 3 games, he and Jeremy Grant have both come in at the same time, more or less replacing Paul Millsap, and then it's been either Gary Harris, Barton, or one of the other wings, so it's kind of hard to tell which direct backup he is in, but they come in at like literally at the exact same time, and we've seen Mike Mullen do the hockey line changes. He's not doing full hockey line changes, but people have specific roles in this, so you could argue back and forth who's he coming in for. But we don't have Barton tonight, which is a lot of minutes bonus there.
Yeah.
To me, I feel a little bit better in this matchup about going with Grant and with Porter as opposed to Millsap, but that's just my personal take. And I've been a huge Millsap fan for a long time. I just don't really like how his role has been carved out with Denver. He is a very, very, very good basketball player. He plays the appropriate defense. He does everything they need him to do, but he's not a fantasy guy anymore like he was with Atlanta or prior stops, like Utah, etc. So it's totally changed that. And it's hard to see him get a ton of upside unless it's like it needs to be a specific matchup for him. I just don't feel that this is the one.
I'm just worried we're going to see Torrey Craig start, and that will bungle
That's
up
a lot
everything.
of empty minutes if that happens.
Somebody's got to guard Luka. That's usually when they deploy him in the one specific ISO-heavy ball handler. So I don't know. Ultimately, I don't think it matters. If you can comfortably project Michael Porter Jr. for 24 minutes at 3,900 on FanDuel or 3,800 on DK, I think that's a very safe bet for you.
Yeah, and I think he was the guy who read so many of these. Yeah, he was the guy I talked about. So basically exactly what I just said was what I put in my good value column for him. My what did I say? Oh, I wanted to hit Yahoo. So the Yahoo discount dandies today would be DJ Augustine at 13. I talked about Michael Porter Jr. at 10. Rondé Hollis Jefferson, I said, if starting, don't really like him at 12 because he's not starting because I have no idea what they're going to do. But I think Bismack Biyombo is okay at 10.
Big fan of Jan Mahinmi there for 11.
Did we get any Daniel Gafford news yet?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Terrence Ross or Eric Gordon on a DK overall points. So just
Terrence Ross.
Yeah, I agree.
Eric Gordon is, and I caught a little bit of what Adam was saying. I think he was talking about Gordon when he says he will shoot better at some point. Gordon's just been in a massive, almost going on 2 years funk now. That's not what he is. He's been dealing with some injuries and other stuff. So I think just something slightly off mechanically. He's shooting horribly. Like he could fall out of a boat and not get water kind of shooting slump. He'll get back to it. I kind of want to see it first. I would go with Terrence Ross, another guy who's a streaky shooter. I mean, these are two comparable guys from what they do. They're both heavily points dependent, but Ross, we've seen a couple good games. I remember someone telling you on a show that Terrence Ross hadn't scored more than 35 fantasy points in 15 games or something like that. Hey, he's capable of doing it. We watched him drop 50 when he was with Toronto. So he's a streak shooter. Now they don't have Jonathan Isaac. No, Jonathan Isaac means 17 shots to go around to him and Fournier and Vooch and other guys. So I would land on Terrence Ross in that one. But
I have Ross by 0.3 of a point, but I do want to point out that Alex has Gordon by quite a bit. So if that matters to you, and it should.
Who's the number one ranked gamer in the world?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's Alex.
Gamer Ninja. I believe it would be Ninja.
Oh, I know who I forget what game he plays, but I know he was the guy who played on Twitch, but then he moved to some other platform and it caused
was Fortnite. I don't know if it's anything else. I'm sure it's a lot of things given his millions of followers. Oh boy, I am going to just have all of the Kyle Lowry, all of the James Harden, lots of the Ish Smith, lots of the Troy Brown, which has not gone well for me pretty much every time I've tried to have that experience. I have more Bobby Portis than any other center. It seems like it's going to be a really good day. I should probably take my Tums right now.
Well, this is a good night to go to bed early, Josh.
They all are.
Yeah.
They all are.
I may have to join. I've got in a bad habit of staying up till midnight before I even think about going to sleep now. I just kind of lay there watching the game on my phone, which is not the most efficient way of doing it, but
I'm not going to be going to bed early though. Do you know why?
Oh, I don't know why.
Because at
you have golf.
8:30 p.m. Eastern time tonight, Ben Rasa, Jason Roslin, PGA Live before lock for the Sony Open. Those guys will be kicking it off, going for about an hour starting at 8:30, and I will be the man behind the virtual glass. So tune into that one if you're looking to dip your toes into the PGA water. This is the first legitimate event of the year, so come check it out.
All right, just for chat, since that now they know what I'm doing, and I used to do this on the other sites. I've started doing it here and there on ours. I'm putting in 5 $1 contests head-to-heads on DK. Jump in and get them. I haven't built my cash game lineup yet. If you've read my cash building blocks article, you can kind of guess who 2 or 3 of my players are going to be. But this will be a fun little distraction because sometimes I just have to put my tournament lineups in my head-to-heads. So there you go. There's 5 out there for the first 5 lucky people. It's like I'm paying the rake for you.
There you go. What a generous offer.
Yeah.
And also, go to superdraft.io and use the promo code AWESEMO for $20 in super cash.
By the way, SuperDraft does have single game contests for NFL. I do want to point that out, and they are a lot of fun. I've been mucking around with those a little bit because I do a fair amount of our single primetime contests. But the scoring is very fun with the multipliers. Plus, you designate one person to get 50% on top of their regular multiplier. And people aren't paying a lot of attention. They have some single entry contests. They have some smaller group contests. You can play head to heads. We have projections for all of that. They tie in perfectly fine with Fantasy Cruncher. They'll take Fantasy Cruncher uploads, etc. I usually just hand build a couple lineups, but it's been a lot of fun to check that out. So I've been using my Super Cash for that. And I'm still up. I'm still playing with Super Cash.
Good. Get that Super Cash. There might be some additional Super Cash going to someone in the near future if everybody would just go follow our Twitch channel. Who is the best super secret plays so I can win all the money? Oh, yeah. James Harden.
Patrick McCaw, because I have to play him.
Is Robin Lopez at 3,300 on DK a decent GPP play? No, he is not.
Oh. Wait. They're playing New Orleans tonight.
They could be playing
New
Orleans College of...
Wasn't Robin drafted by New Orleans?
No idea. I doubt it. I have no idea. He could have been. I'm going to try to beat you to that. I don't even think New Orleans was a team at that point.
He was selected with the 15th pick by Phoenix and traded to the New Orleans Hornets.
Okay, they were the Hornets at that point. Yeah. I didn't even know if they were New Orleans at that point. Oh, yeah, 4 years later.
Yeah. I had a thought.
Did he even play a full season there? Yep, 82 games. 2012-13. Who the hell was on that team?
Some good questions here about McCray.
Oh, that is an interesting team. Eric Gordon, Anthony Davis, Ryan Anderson, Al-Farouq Aminu, Austin Rivers. There's some legit bodies there. There's some not legit bodies there. Lance Thomas.
Wait, was that the Chris Paul year, or was it?
No Chris Paul here.
No Chris Paul.
AD, Eric Gordon, Aminu, Ryan Anderson, and I don't know, Xavier Henry, Roger Mason, Darius Miller was there then? Dude, that guy has been on the Pelicans forever.
He's got the Udonis Haslam deal with the Pels.
I guess. What does he have on the Bensons? All right. How many Rockets is too many in a DK GPP lineup?
I don't want more than 3.
I don't even know if I like 3.
Yeah. Well, Capella and Harden would be 2 of them. So,
yeah, 3 probably. As far as I'm concerned, there's only really 4 options there. Daniel House is like a 2% guy. So,
okay.
But yeah. I mean, if you had 4, I don't think it's outlandish, but 3 is probably like the smarter spot.
Yes. Oh, and chat. Yes, I know that. Thank you for pointing that out. I did know that Lopez was not. He's on the Bucks. That I do know. He's multiple teams removed from Chicago. It's been a long day, and the caffeine has worn off, so my brain is fragmenting on me.
You're fine.
I've got a little blood sugar. I'm ready for lunch. I'm ready for dinner. I had a candy bar. That was
lunch.
Yeah, the candy bar was not a good idea. It helped for a couple minutes, and now I'm feeling the after effects of not having sugar. So.
I think I ate 3 pounds of food at lunch. Oh.
Goodness, Josh.
Yeah, it was delicious, though. Delicious.
Hopefully it wasn't tuna and macaroni and cheese.
No, that's disgusting. It was, I went to a place called Flaming Amy's Bowl, which is sort of like an American Mongolian grill. So I did a small amount of potatoes, like very small, like 6 very tiny potatoes to use as a bed for a heaping spoonful of chipotle chilies and chipotle paste, along with a massive amount of broccoli, because you got to get those greens, and then another small bowl filled with an overwhelming amount of shrimp, bacon, and shredded steak. And you cook all that stuff up together with a little bit of egg, some white rice, and a poblano cream sauce. Mix it all up on the flat top. Amazing. But it's also a gigantic bowl filled with food. It's incredible.
That sounds really good.
It's fantastic. They have infinitely more options for you to choose from, but I am not a big anything else guy. I want just the meat and veggies. And by veggies, I mean only broccoli. No broccoli guy. Thad Young will start for the injured Wendell Carter. So, if you're curious, guys, that means most likely that Lauri Markkanen is starting at
center. Yep.
Yeah. I don't get the sense he's going to get a ton of run at the 5. I still think we see a decent amount of Daniel Gafford. Luckily, I don't have him in anything, so I don't have to fix that. If you don't have Kadeem Allen tonight, put on your Jack Johnson Lullaby mixtape a few hours early because your night is over. Yeah, I don't think that's true, unless Kadeem Allen is coming back to Wilmington to play against the high school team.
Yes. Oh, yes, and to finish that, yes, sorry, Bucks, he's with his brother. I'm well aware of that. For back to Lopez. Got it. Was not saying we play him tonight. It was just a reminder that I looked it up once upon a time, seeing it all the different teams he had played for. Because, the mascot fights. I was trying to figure out, who he was potentially frenemies with and who it was real vengeance against.
Are we waiting on any other news at this point?
We do have one, and it's driving me crazy that I can't remember what it is. Oh, it was we don't know if Porter's starting yet, right?
Correct. That's what we're looking for, which we probably won't get, right?
Yeah, I don't think we will.
What?
Dennis Smith Jr., but that's an afterthought. I don't think Marcus Morris has officially been ruled out yet, and then we don't know for sure. Although expected to play, he's questionable still, Pat Connaughton.
Who are you?
And the only reason I say expected to play is there could be minutes available for players that aren't good on the Bucks to play tonight. So,
who are you staring at as your most likely highest exposed player today?
I haven't run my crunches, but it's going to be James Harden. I'm working on my tiers lineup right now. We had a nice little guy follows us that said he's doing well on the tiers contest. So I like playing these on DK.
Nice.
I am going with a lot of Harden tonight. Normally I use tier 1 as sort of a leverage against what I think the rest of the field is going to be doing. Tonight, I just don't see anybody else I want. now, so I will play like 70 or 80% of him
Yeah.
because I think the field's going to be nearly that high because it's just it feels silly not to. Could he bust? Yes, and in that case, then I want a few of these other guys. No, I play these with a little more volatility than I do. But I just finished my quote main lineup that I've gotten a bunch of 3-mans and a couple other contests, and that's where I have Jordan McRae. He's tier 6. I like him the best of tier 6. Saying that because somebody was asking, how do you feel good or bad about McRae? I really have him and Troy Brown kind of equal, regardless of who's starting or not. If Jonathan Isaac was actually playing, he's not for the next 2 months because he hurt his knee and potentially could be longer than that. But that would make me want the guy off the bench probably more. But with the way things are set up, with who I think would be guarding them, et cetera, I'm fine with either of those guys. It doesn't matter to me who's starting or who's not. But that I think is one to pay attention to. And we've seen it a bunch of times. This happened this weekend with Simmons from from Detroit, from Portland, and Gary
Simons.
Trent. Damn it! I knew I was
like,
do that. I was
Ben.
No, that's why I was stuck on it because I'm like
Jonathan.
There's one M.
Roster.
How did I just pronounce it? I'm dying on this one. Simons, thank you. Simon says I'm going to remember it that way now. So Simons was the one who was coming off the bench, and so Eddie was like, "Don't play Trent. Play the guy. We want whoever's coming off the bench," and that turned out to be a very good move. But I think just with the way the rotations are going to work out, I'm ambivalent to the two Washington guys.
Jack Perry, thank you for the super chat. Ketchup in my eggs and on my mac and cheese all day. By leading with that statement, you are not going to get your question asked. You should know better. Sorry, Jack. I'm kidding. Would you take Clemens as a dart throw with Russ out? Absolutely not.
The Houston guys they're really not that exciting.
You got to give that dude a lot of minutes for that to be viable. I gave him 20. He is not a part of my player pool. You know what? I was probably a little too dismissive there. 3,300 on DK is
I could see him as a 5 to 10% guy, but that's it.
He is not in my player pool on DraftKings. I'm also not playing on DraftKings today. Only on FanDuel on days where I'm going to be on the live stream. But Chris Clemens would not be a part of my DK player pool. I have him at 20 minutes. If I projected him for 22 or more, he would probably sneak into a couple lineups. So I probably was a little hasty in disregarding him, but I don't really see the appeal. At best, he's going to be like my 55th favorite guy, which is not exactly someone that I'm going to be advocating for people to play.
We're getting Fournier or Bledsoe. For me, that's going to be Fournier.
You know which site?
I think it was DK. For me, it would be Fournier on both sides. I like his matchup against the Wizards.
I have Eric Bledsoe outscoring Evan Fournier 53%.
Right. So it's sort of a pick 'em there.
Yep.
Wait, outscoring him from raw points or outscoring him from a point per dollar?
Raw points.
Oh, really?
I have him by 1.1, which makes it 53.
Okay.
But, you change one guy's minute one way and one the other, and it's the opposite answer. So
right.
anytime it's 53%, it's a coin flip. It is a very, very clear coin flip. Guys, 6:45. You have 15 minutes left. Jannar with the super chat in the Monopoly money, Canadian dollars. I'll get Nolan to translate that into real money for us a bit later. McRae and DeJounte Murray or Lonzo Ball and Dante DiVincenzo in DK cash. That would be Ball and DiVincenzo for me.
I would think I would go that route. I just think that DiVincenzo, he got a rest day the other day, which was kind of surprising to me. But he is someone I think could get, with George Hill out, could get that second unit point guard duties. Because Hill doesn't always get it. He oftentimes does not get any blowout run. But with him not being there, someone's really got to do it. And I don't see them choosing to really extend Bledsoe's minutes in this one. So by transitive properties or side angle, side hypotenuses, or whatever that was in geometry that we learned, I would go with Dante DiVincenzo.
Okay. And then Nicholas, another super chat. I have 0% Giannis in my crunch. Bad thing? ? Depends how many lineups you're playing.
I only played 6% of him. I just uploaded my tiers, and I only have 6%. Now, granted, it's in the same tier as Harden and Luka Doncic, but even with the heavy randomness setting, I'm not getting there. It's a little different point per dollar, but could we see this be a 28-minute game with Giannis where he gets 45 fantasy points and doesn't need to play the last, I guess the fourth quarter because they're up by 35? Yes.
I have 11% Giannis right now on FanDuel.
What are we projecting the field?
26 on FanDuel.
Okay, that would feel right. I would want to be less. And usually when I feel, I want to be less, I start with half. And then if less comes into my crunches, I'm okay with that.
Brian Johnson, Satoransky and Ingram or Ball and Aldridge on DK? I assume it's the latter, but I'll throw it to you first.
I would go with the second one there.
Let me see. Load it all in here since I have some time. Tomas Satoransky, Brandon Ingram.
And I'm setting my lineups here. See if you guys picked up my cash games.
LaMarcus Aldridge. I got a new keyboard and I am in love with it. I have something. LaMarcus. Yep, I missed it. Missed the D in Aldridge. Nope.
Do you use a desktop or do you use a
I am on a desktop right now. Although I did just buy a brand new laptop as well.
Nice.
I had to pay myself a little bit there. Lonzo Ball, LaMarcus Aldridge, I have as a significantly better option than Satoransky Ingram. I am also staggeringly low on Brandon Ingram compared to basically everyone else I've seen. There's that. Take that for what it's worth. Lonzo Ball is my favorite play out of everybody in that list.
He's had some really good games lately.
I have 31% Lonzo right now on FanDuel. He is my third most owned point guard behind Kyle Lowry and Ish.
Have you and Adam talked about him on the DFS strategy show? I know he's a player that Adam follows a lot. Has he said good or bad things about him recently, or has he come up in conversation?
We haven't really talked about him much lately. He's only really important as far as I'm concerned today just because Drew Holiday is out. So
right.
Without Drew being out, and I think Drew, I don't know if he was fully out when we did the strategy show yesterday. Adam didn't do the strategy show yesterday. That was Lofty. So no, he and I have not talked about him. But, well, yeah, no matter what I'm doing, all I want to do is type more on my keyboard. It's just like the most.
You like it that much?
It's like the most satisfying experience in the world. I've never felt key presses like that before. I love it.
Does it light up?
It's all sorts. It's like a rainbow of colors that constantly changes colors.
Although I had a light up keyboard on my laptop for the first time ever, and I was like, "Oh, I don't need this." Oh my god! Now, anytime I use it when I don't have the good light or whatever, or if I'm trying to read something in bed and I'm on a different laptop, I get mad. It's so funny.
I don't love the laptop keyboard now, so I bought that new laptop, and I'm just like, I'd rather just use my other keyboard. So I got to get used to it.
Yeah.
I feel like I want more Kyle Lowry than I have right now. Is that outlandish to say when you have 61% Kyle Lowry?
Not if you believe.
He is $8,200. And he is going to do everything for that team right now against the Charlotte Hornets.
Now what's wrong with Mitchell Robinson? Oh, he's probable. Never mind. Oh, toe injury. Okay.
So you just mentioned Mitch. Yeah, he's one of the 5 centers that I have with any sort of volume today. I didn't expect that earlier. Didn't think that I would have 50% of my center ownership going to the Knicks centers when I woke up today. Let's be clear here.
No, but I'm looking at him in cash games.
I get it.
DK. Well, it's him or Taj Gibson.
I would rather have Mitchell Robinson.
What about Damian Dotson? Oh, God, Damian Dotson's not good. See, this is why, for the 5 of you that got my head-to-heads, this is why you should have done it. because here I am trying to figure out what they're going to be.
Well,
All
you better
right,
hustle because you have 8 minutes and 45 seconds to get your lineups in.
I'm good.
Okay.
I got this.
I'm sitting pretty right now, so I'm just waiting for something really awful to happen right now.
That's usually how it works. All right, so let's save that. Yeah, today I can't bail and save myself by going to the late games because the late games are horrible.
They are wildly unappealing. I talked a lot about Rudy Gobert this morning after going through all of my data. He fell to my 5th ranked center, so it was a bit of a tumble for me. But let me hit everybody with my FanDuel, my key FanDuel exposures today. If anybody wants to, lock anything down. As I mentioned before, 3 most owned point guards: Kyle Lowry by a lot, Ish Smith and Lonzo Ball. Shooting guard is very clearly 91% James Harden as of right now, 30% Jordan McRae. Basically small combinations of everybody else. Small forward, casting a really wide net: Troy Brown, Alec Burks, Gordon Hayward, the 3 most owned guys. Joe Ingles getting a little bit of love from me as well. It's just a pretty gross position as far as I'm concerned. Don't have a ton of Giannis, barely have any Brandon Ingram, so I'm hoping that those guys stay quiet. Power forward, paying all the way down. So, I just caught an error. I need to lower Rondae Hollis-Jefferson by quite a bit. Didn't notice it.
How much were you getting?
Like 30.
Ooh, that's a lot.
Yeah. So let's clean up that mess quickly.
For a guy now coming off the bench that the team actively seems to hate.
Yeah. Even though the Nick Nurse had a quote yesterday saying that about Terrence Davis's minutes being low and saying that they were probably 5 minutes too high, which is a really aggressive comment about one of your players to start him the next day. I can't imagine how that ended up happening. But yeah,
what are you doing with Mo Bamba?
Not playing any of him.
You can't play. It seems like he might not have been in our player pool. That's why you gotta double check these things here as you're going through.
So I am circling back to make adjustments to bring that Rondae Hollis-Jefferson number down. But PJ Tucker, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, Lauri Markkanen. That's where I'm looking at power forward. And then at center, Bobby Portis, most exposed center. Pretty wide net of Rudy Gobert, Clint Capella, Mitchell Robinson. So I'm quite a bit under the field on Capella in order to get a bit over the field on Gobert. So I guess I'm still heavy on Gobert in comparison to the field, but I was expecting him to be 40, 50% owned for me, and I walked him back quite a bit. All Millsap ruled out.
Really?
Yeah, that's news.
That's big.
I don't have him at all right now, so I don't have to scramble too hard. All I'm going to be doing at this 6%. Point is basically checking to see. That probably solidifies Michael Porter Jr.'s minutes at this point.
Yeah, and Jeremy Grant as well.
I hope that Jeremy Grant does not show up in my lineups right now.
Jeremy Grant's going to now be playing for me.
I would prefer that he doesn't show up at all. All right, so the last time that Millsap was out, Gary Harris missed one of those games, which is interesting. Juancho got 20 minutes. Porter got 26. Malik Beasley got 23. Okay. We could use Harris as a proxy there. So let's go ahead and... What did Jeremy Grant get in that game? Jeremy Grant played 30 minutes in both of those games with Millsap out. So I'm going to take him up to... I'm going to say 28 right now. I'm going to give Juancho quite a bit more than that. We'll give him... That takes it to 4. I'll give Malik Beasley 4 more as well. That should cover me. So for Denver, I might not get this crunch in.
Yeah, I'm kind of running into that as well.
I did not mean to do what I just did, which was delete the crunch that I was just running. What happens to Denver now? Michael Porter Jr. is fine. I don't have really much interest in Jeremy Grant on FanDuel. He's much more in play on DK, so I think that I could largely avoid this. Now I just need to hope that I get this crunch in the next 5 minutes. But I can manually adjust Rondae Hollis-Jefferson down right now and slightly update my baseline just so it doesn't go crazy. Because let's be clear, I have no interest in 26.7% Rondé Hollis-Jefferson now that he is not starting. So Toronto.
That's kind of a dangerous number.
Yeah, it's just not going to get me anywhere. You know, it's not like he's a guy that's going to benefit dramatically from coming off of the bench. So at the very least, I'm going to refresh this so that he does not show up in a mass amount of my lineups. And then I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that I can get this crunch done, which I'm expecting to. Not that crazy of a slate. Seems to be running pretty quickly. I can pull the plug on it at like 6:58 and change if I need to. I need to change my desktop clock to show the seconds. Yeah.
Yes.
Can you do that?
You'd be surprised how long, if you don't know, or how long or short that minute can be if you don't know.
Yeah. I'll figure out how to do that at a later date.
The other thing I've incorporated more is the equals RAND parens.
Oh, yeah? There's some other people that should have done that, too.
Yes, but I heard you guys talking about it. I'm like, you know what? I really should just do that instead of the way I was doing it. And game changer. So much faster than what I was doing. Now, I'm assuming it just takes just does random numbers, and then if you sort it, it just does new random numbers. That's all it's doing.
Anytime there's a calculation, it will recalculate the random numbers. The random number will be anywhere between 0 and 1.
Perfect. Okay.
Let's see where we're at on the crunch. We are at 6:57:50, so we are looking at 2 minutes to go. My crunch is at 850, so I'm feeling pretty good here. We got about 2 minutes before we are locked. Fix your lineups.
You want me to do a little talking here? Because I've got my lineups in. So.
Yeah, you can. I'm not super stressed about this. I'm going to cut it off at the 30-second mark, but I think that I'll get just under my 1,000. I'm not too worried.
Well, for the number of times that I have to scramble, it'll turn this around.
I do appreciate it. It's usually good to just throw this to Eddie.
Yeah. Is Porter a better play now? Yes, I would agree that he is. Do you mind playing multiple New Orleans guards on the same team? I'm okay because Drew Holiday is out. So when it comes down to Ball and Redick, etc., not worried about them being on the same team. There'll be additional shots and ball handling abilities or responsibilities opening up without Drew Hall. Let's see, which Terrence are we going with? I prefer Ross. Would be the guy I would want. Jeremy Grant looks like an under-owned play now. Yes, I would agree with that. I bumped him up, so I was getting him on 20% of my lineups because I feel that's about right. His probable range of outcomes is somewhere between 18 and my guess would be 27 fantasy points on DK. That's probably about where I have Michael Porter Jr. as well. So that is important. We've got 38 seconds to go here. So Tucker or Porter, I would be going with Porter. The Millsap thing really lands me on that side. I don't think it's the worst case. We got that Millsap news late enough that I don't think as many people will change off of Tucker. And I think Tucker is perfectly capable of getting 35 DK points in this matchup. Him not scoring for 2 games in a row is a reasonable outcome for him. But remember, he's a guy that can get 7 combined blocks and steals in a game as well, and then hit 3 3-pointers and a couple garbage layup buckets, and all of a sudden he's got 40 fantasy points. So he is someone I think that you should not overlook most nights. We are 3, 2, and 1.
My Rudy Gobert came down quite a bit on that new crunch, but what are we going to do here? Not too worried about it. Feeling good. Don't see anything that stands out as terribly problematic. Probably too much Alec Burks, but I have him projected 2 points less than Alex does today, so I rarely feel bad when I get a lot of someone and I'm still light. 57% Kyle Lowry is what I ended up with. 82.7 James Harden, which I'm a little bummed about.
You wanted it to be higher?
I would have preferred it to be 100. I liked it at 90.
All right, so here's where I ended up. This is DK locked. So we have Kyle. This is mine, so I'm not looking at the contest, but I have 47% Lowry, 47% Jordan McRae, 10% Isaiah Thomas. Remember, I said I wasn't a huge fan of his. I've got 77% Harden. Only 6% Ish Smith. I would have thought I would end up with more Ish Smith than I would have with Isaiah Thomas, but I'm still okay with that.
I have 40% Ish Smith.
Josh Hart, I have 37%. That's a lot. Gary Harris, I have 10%. I'm sort of ambivalent about that. There's going to be a ton of minutes. Theoretically, he'll be one of the guys guarding Luka, but he has not been that exciting at all for about the last season and a half. He has clearly been surpassed by Will Barton. He is still one of their best defenders, and he's a fantastic basketball player. Hell, I wish he was on the Wizards. But from a fantasy standpoint, he'll get you 30 fantasy points once a month. That's about it. PJ Tucker, are you sitting down?
Yes.
43%. That feels a little high.
I have slightly less.
Eric Gordon, 36%.
I have
feels a little
way
high.
less.
Bobby Portis, did I say that? 52%.
I have less, but he is still my most owned center.
Clint Capella, 47%. Now, what I was doing here was running a lot of selective lineups where I was saying I want 4 guys from that Houston game. And then I was locking in alternating the 4 core plays, the 2 from each side. Well, I had locked in Herter as well in some of those, and I was locking in combinations of 3 of them. So that doesn't surprise me. I have that many, or let me rephrase that. I know how I got there, but now that I'm looking at it, it's like, I guess they were leaking into too many of my other lineups where I wasn't doing game stacks. Players I'm disappointed on, that I only have 6% Vucevic. That is disappointing. Players I'm terrified. Is Amari Spellman going to play tonight? I have 1.7%.
That's 1.7 more than I have.
Yeah, that'll be some late swap. I can just add more Knicks players.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that, right? How bad could that go?
Oh, boy.
Guys, thank you for being here. Please hit the like button as you work your way out the door. I hope you have success tonight, at least with the guys that I have a lot of. Again, coming up at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Ben Rasa and Jason Roslin will be live talking PGA DFS for tomorrow's Sony Open, which is the first legitimate golf contest of the season. So check that out. EMAC, anything else?
Did you end up, they're asking, did you end up with any Thad Young?
No.
I had 3%.
No Thad Young.
Markkanen, I had 1%. So be it. I'm taking a Josh-like stand tonight. Apparently the Knicks value is carrying the day along with that Houston game. But that's what happens when you have almost 80% James Harden. That this is a byproduct of it.
Yeah. $5,400 Thad Young on FanDuel is going to be hard to get to when I have that much Harden.
Yeah, 1% Giannis, which I'm fine with. DK was a lot closer to those guys in price, and I had to force in 9% of Luka. I had to lock him and make some lineups because I wasn't getting him because I was getting so much Harden. But that's where I acquiesced.
Guys, please hit that like button. We will be back tomorrow morning, myself and Adam Scher, bringing you the best NBA strategy show. It's the best show in the world, as far as I'm concerned. The literal world.
Hey, hats off to you guys. You're getting 800 concurrent in the mornings on that. This is like a better than a morning show, I think, right?
We ball hard. We ball hard around here. Thank you very much to SuperDraft for being the sponsor. Go to superdraft.io. Use the promo code AWESEMO for $20 in super cash on your first $100 deposit. And that's it. EMAC, anything else? Parting thoughts?
Nope. Just to remind everybody, anybody's listening but didn't see chat, those were my ownership exposures that I am playing on DraftKings. Those were not actual DraftKings contests.
There we go, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Best of luck. We are out of here.